Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CrowCast Tuesday Night Live. All rested and ready to go after the break. Joining me is the usual motley bunch. Peter, how you going, Peter?
Fine, good evening. How are you going? Have a good break?
Yes, very well, thank you. Donkey, how are you, mate?
Yeah, looking very well tonight, guys. And
Fired up
to be here with all of you. No, not really.
Come on.
Just casual, Donkey.
And someone give Macca a shake. Macca, are you awake, mate? You there?
I am. I'm going to give donkey shit as usual.
Beautiful work. And good evening to everyone in the chat, just Morley at the moment, but I'm sure we'll be joined by the usual crew. And without any further ado, let's get into the news, shall we? Just a couple of things going on, Pete.
A couple of things going on, mate. I'll probably just kick off with the very recent announcement of the Jeremy Cameron case. 5 weeks he was given for intentionally striking. He argued careless, but it was found to be intentional. 5 weeks. Don't know what you all think about that. For me, I just think it was such a pig of an incident. Such a cowardly attack on a player who was not in a position to defend himself at all, and such, what were very, very consequences, and which could have been, incredibly serious.
The lad had bleeding on the brain.
I just think that would have got 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. In a football context, nothing would equate to the damage and the extent of just how cowardly, because I've seen a couple of stills of it, and just how cowardly that attack on the player was. And Jeremy Cameron can piss on all he likes about, that he felt sick and, all that kind of crap. Well, he's got form. He's done stuff like this before. He is a dog, I just hope he gets whatever comes his way.
Well, can I make one comment? And I'm not trying to defend him, but I saw the incident live. I was watching the game, and I've got no doubt that when he took off, he was intending to mark the ball.
He led with his elbow. He led with his forearm. Have you seen the stills?
No, the elbow went out when he was in midair, because as he took off, he spotted the guy coming towards him and put his elbow out then. So when he took off into the air, I don't believe that he was targeting the player. However, I will say this, that once he saw that there was going to be a collision, he made sure that he wasn't the one that got hurt.
That's not how I saw it, Macca.
Yeah, that's just it's a complete recreation of the facts as the footage and the stills show it. He
I can only tell you how I saw it.
It was found to be intentional. There was nothing. What you described there, Macca, was careless. It was found to be intentional. It was a dog of an act, and he's a pig of a player. And I hope he gets.
And he's got form.
But it can't be called
he's got
careless.
Form. He's done it before.
It can't be called careless, because once they've already established that once you raise your elbow, then it becomes intentional and not careless.
Yeah, look, I thought it was careless to start off with, and I pulled up the little matrix of how they make their decisions, and once I first saw it, I thought it was careless. It was obviously severe, and it was obviously, once that happens, even though it's doesn't matter where you hit them, it's 3 matches and then tribunal. I would have thought, if they thought it was careless, maybe 5 matches would probably be appropriate. I actually thought 6 matches on careless was appropriate. But once you think that he intended to actually hit the person, which is the tribunal said they've done, only giving an extra 2 matches on top of that, and the bloke had bleeding on the brain, that's why it's a joke.
Well, I think that if he did really set out to do what you're saying, Peter, I would think that he deserved more like what Donkey's saying, like 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking 8.
They could have gone to town on him. Because the reality is, if he did that, if that wasn't on a football field, if that was down the pub and he just lunges and runs at a guy, a deliberate strike on a guy, and with that consequence, that's a really serious criminal offence.
Yeah.
Well, at no stage was he going for the ball, Macca, and he could have taken that contact without putting his elbow up quite comfortably. He was coming from the back of the pack.
I do agree.
Coming from the back of the pack, the other bloke was running back with the flight of the ball. He's completely open, as we all know from playing footy. You're completely open when you're running back like that, especially when your eyes are on the ball. You're not aware of what's coming towards you. He was a sitting duck, and of all the incidents that we toss around with the MRP, this one was, I reckon, probably the most serious of the year, and 5 weeks to me is a joke.
Well, the only area we're disagreeing in is when he jumped off the ground and what was his intention.
Well, did he ever have his arms up going for the mark or going for the spoil, Macca? Not at any stage.
At no point are his hands outstretched looking going for a mark. He jumps with leading with his forearm.
No, I'm a little bit on Macca's side of this. I think that he intended to go for a mark or a spoil initially, and then I think he worked out pretty quickly he couldn't do it, like really, really quickly, and then he wanted to make contact. I actually think he wanted to make contact after that. I don't think he necessarily intended to hit him in the head.
Once he wants to make contact, it's intentional. And an intentional act with that amount of force and with that outcome. Like the guy may not play again this season. They're saying 3 to 4 weeks, but bleeding on the brain is no light matter, and the guy could be out for the season. And to me, there's more care about derailing GWS's season and less care about actually applying an appropriate punishment.
Yeah, and also a whole lot of bullshit media narrative about, poor old Jez, he felt really bad about it. And I felt sick about it. Oh,
so he fucking should.
He would have.
It just makes me sick.
And you're right, Pete. He plays hard. He's always played hard.
No. That's not playing hard, donkey.
That's cowardly.
I was halfway through a sentence.
Yeah, but your first half was wrong. He doesn't play hard. That's not hard play.
Yeah, but it's also not the whole sum of the equation. I'm saying he plays hard. He plays hard, and that's fine. But that was outside of the rules, and that was actually a bit of a dog act.
Oh, in the end, I think he's very lucky to get away with 5 because the only difference on where we differ is I think when he started to launch, I think his intention originally was to go for a mark, but then seeing that he was going to get possibly smashed into, he didn't just put his arm out; he put his elbow right out. And he did extend his elbow out. There's no doubt about that. So I've always had him down for 5 matches anyhow, and I at least maybe 6. So when we're not arguing great semantics about what he finally did. I'm only arguing about what his original intention was when he launched off the ground.
Yeah. Anyway.
Fair enough, Mike. All right, so moving on from that one, we won't get bogged down in that talk. We're moving on to a bit of Crows news. Great news yesterday, of course, that Tom Lynch signed a 3-year deal to stay at the football club, and that's a really, really good signing. He's a very, very important player, obviously, to our side, and so that was a really a good achievement. Everyone happy with that, I assume?
I'm happy with it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I certainly am. Yeah.
I think it was also a good announcement for the time as well. I know that a lot of people were saying, roll out that on Sunday morning after the train wreck that was the day before. But, we actually just need to put away a good bloke now. I know we got Douglas a couple of weeks ago and Fogg a couple of weeks before that, but Lynch is actually pretty good, was being sought after by other clubs, and he wanted to stay here with us.
Oh, he was a All-Australian squad member last year. He's an incredibly important player, and when he's in form, I think he's had some issues this year with illness, and that's probably affected his form. But when he's on song, he's an incredibly important player, and All-Australian squad player. But most importantly, there's not a lot of players around that play his role. He's a fairly unique kind of player. So he was a great signing for us, and I think that was. You're absolutely spot on, Donk. It was great to have some positive news because we can't. We want to be as positive we can because we've had a couple of fairly negative weeks, but you can't not discuss the press conference on Saturday. It was a train wreck as you described it. it was an extraordinary. It was like almost calling it an extraordinary meeting of the shareholders.
Except the people that called it didn't know why they were there.
Didn't know why they were there. It was the most astonishing thing that you could call a presser and have a week to prepare for it, basically, and trot out, the coach and the football manager, and it started off with them not really knowing why they were there. It was just, oh my God, it was just it was a car crash, it was a train wreck, whatever you want to call it. And interestingly enough, there was some, inevitably it turned to collective minds, and it was interesting that Brett Burton really looked unprepared, and he really walked into a trap that he set for himself, in a sense, by effectively saying that it was all fairly laughable and that it was all a bit of a joke, and it was.
How was that? Christ.
It was ridiculous, and then of course, he just walked into it. He set his own trap. He walked right into it, and then of course, Gino, not sure who it was, but immediately asked, well, what happened? And then he says, well, I can't really comment on that. And then, the inevitable follow-up question is, well, if it was not serious, and if there was no big deal, and if it's all a bit of a joke, why can't you tell us? The look on Burton's face was just, my God. Sorry, that's all I've got.
Burton shouldn't be in that role anyhow. I think we all agree on that. He is not qualified to be in that role. He hasn't got the background. Why he was appointed that role, I don't know. And in that presser, he absolutely proved why he shouldn't be in that particular position for all the reasons that you said, Pete, and more. I want to say one thing too. Hats off to Phoenix, who was right on the ball well before even the media started carrying on about these guys aren't qualified and they're not psychologists and that. And Phoenix was really stirring the pot well before that. And you're on the money, mate.
Macca, did I just get a sweet?
You got a sweet, mate.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks, mate.
I'm about to give Macca a smack. I think
you can't give him a smack because he gave me a sweet. I'll just mute you. I'll mute you.
Yeah, we all know how you operate by now.
Yeah, it's a rush here, mate.
I can't believe Fiend's up there accepting the sweet when I had the bloody info.
Hey, I did the bloody research.
Sorry, Donk, what you can say?
No, you're right. I was just going to give Macca a smack. He's pasted Burton, but Macca forgets that Burton got us to an AFL ex-premiership at the start of the year. And what that's going to mean for the club.
He what?
We won the AFL flag, Macca. I think we've all forgotten that.
And you're fucking nailing the guy. Jesus. Look, I've without getting into too much depth, I've done a little bit of media in my time and setting up press conferences and doing other things similarly. And what was really evident was that Burton was completely unprepared for a press conference. Now, whether they drilled him and he just fluffed it, or whether they hadn't prepared him, it tells me one of two things: either he does not deserve a job at the Adelaide Football Club, or Ian Shuttleworth and he do not deserve a job at the Adelaide Football Club. This entire issue that we're dealing with right now has been a festering wound that hasn't been addressed properly for a long, long period of time. And it reared its head again a couple of weeks ago, not just with us, but with leaks that went out to other people. And the response from the club continually has been absolutely pathetic. They haven't inoculated the story. They haven't briefed their people about talking about the story. They haven't come out and given any form of adequate answer that would actually make the story go away. If the club had come out 2 weeks ago and said, hey, look, we know that there was a problem with collective minds or this perceived problem, we went and had interviews with all the players to make sure that they don't have a continual problem. And at the end of that, they've all told us it's okay, or there's a couple of things we've had to resolve. We could all be there. But we have not had any of that clear communication. That's not giving away any trade secrets. That's not doing any other stuff. But we've talked to the players. The players are all okay on an individual level. We haven't had any of that. We've got Burton that goes out there, arrogant. He is the most arrogant man that I've ever seen.
Not wrong.
Most arrogant man I've ever seen. And we laugh at you because of the things you say. Well, what are the things you laugh at and why do you laugh at them? Oh, well, I can't tell you that. What? What? I mean, you're in front of the media and of this like a club that was in the race to win the premiership last year, and they're not in the race because of your actions, your inability, your complete incompetence, and you want to say, oh, it's so laughable how bad you are, but I can't tell you why you're bad. Burton, you can fuck off. Sorry.
Well, that's no. I think 100%. And they thought they were going to have a smooth run and calm the media. Well, Burton antagonised the media even further with that attitude. And
I think that's a very good point, Macca. The antagonist nature or behaviour of Brett Burton in front of the media, and it's not the first time. Don't forget, he hopped on the radio a few weeks ago and told us all that he was offended that anyone would possibly think that they were telling porky pies or being less than transparent. And look where we are. I mean, 3 or 4 weeks later, they're being pulled up for being exactly those things. They've been pulled up for not being transparent and for telling porky pies.
I think. Sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say. Sorry, go on, Macca.
There's one point out of it though. I thought Don Pike got a big tick because Burton was doing all the talking and was trying to fob it off and virtually say that everything was okay, and Pikey had the guts to say no, it was a fail, and he actually put it back in perspective, and he was honest about his opinion of it. And it's a pity that he didn't do all the talking because we might have actually got out of it a lot better.
He was ashamed. He was ashamed of the bloke standing next to him. You could tell from his body language. He had his shoulder turned away from him.
Yeah, and there's one point where Burton was saying something, and I did look at it again the other day, but I forget the actual moment. But there was a moment when Burton was answering a question, and Pikey's brow furrows. He actually frowns while Burton's talking as if to... And, you know, I'm not a body language expert, but to me it looked like he was kind of thinking, what the hell are you talking about kind of thing, or why are you saying this? There's clearly a disconnect between the two. And considering that Don effectively reports to Burton as General Manager of footy operations, I don't think it's a tenable situation. I
think, you know, regardless of the... I agree with you on that theme, but what I can't believe is that when you, as an organisation, decide that you're going to take over your own media, and you set a bit of a fire with that, and you start a bit of a war with the likes of Crop Media because you're freezing journos out here and there, and you're trying to do your own media. Then you've got to control the message, and you've got to be prepared, and just. Every inch of that press conference sort of said to me that those two guys nobody had sat down. Shuttleworth had not sat down and said, this is the message. This is the reason why we're calling the press conference. This is the message we want to get out. Here are the talking points. You stick to these talking points and you don't go outside of these talking points, and you make sure that this is the message, a united message that gets across. And instead what happened is that they were just both sent out there individually and with no talking points, and they were just left there to deal with the questions, and there was no uniformity, there was no and as you quite rightly observe, Fiend, that there was an apparent disconnect. And I think that and I just want to really quickly take up a point that American Crow, welcome mate, to the chat. He mentions there, when are the players going to accept some responsibility in all of this? And I don't have any information on this, but my gut feel is that press conference was a little bit about, publicly actually acknowledging the failure of collective minds. And I think that, I think we've established that there is some player issues down there, and quite clearly in the performances. My gut feeling is that if you're one of the players that have been affected by this, and we know that some of them have, you've not had any this year. You've had not any acknowledgement from the club whatsoever, or nothing that validates how you're feeling about this. All you've had from the club is public utterances of, it's all a bit of a blow, it's not important. It's all a bit of a, it's been overblown. And so there's nothing that the club has said which has validated how those players and what they've felt and what they've gone through. My gut feeling is that there was a little bit of, in order to move on, what we want is for the club to actually acknowledge that this was a failure, and that it didn't work for every player. And now I've got no information on that. That's just a gut feel. But
I reckon that's a really good point, Pete.
Yeah. And I reckon AC, that I think we'll see. I think that what we'll see this week, I'm going to tip the Crows to win on Saturday night, because I think that they're going to put this behind them now. And the pathetic performances that we saw against Fremantle, against Hawthorn, that were just inexplicably poor, and all of the effort matrices were down. I think what we'll see is a completely different side this week. I think that we'll see a united side, because I think that finally the club has done what they should have done in March, and that's put their hand up and say, this was a mistake. This has damaged some players. We acknowledge that it's damaged them, and we accept, responsibility for that. They hadn't done that.
I reckon you're on the money, Pete.
Yeah,
right on the money.
I reckon, Pete, it's a really good point, because you and I, or everyone knows that the players are judged by their performances every week, and they're very much in the spotlight. I mean, they live and die by the scoreboard, basically, and the club sits in the background behind them and supports them and gives them resources and all the rest of it. But when the club is making poor choices and it's impacting on the players' ability to play on the field, and the players are copping all the heat, then rightly, it's not a big stretch to suggest that perhaps the players have pushed back at the club, like you suggested, Pete, and said, come on, you need to acknowledge that it's a systemic issue, or it's an internal issue. I think for me, a couple of disappointing things have come out of the whole thing. First of all, once or twice that the club has been, I'm not going to say dishonest with me, but they've certainly been very clever with words with me when I've asked them questions. I asked them directly whether the Richmond song was played. The club volunteered to me directly when I spoke with them that the story that the Richmond club song had been played on the bus was incorrect, and yet they come out at the press conference and admit that it was played. Now, the funny wordplay there is that it wasn't actually played, someone actually sang it. So technically, they didn't lie to me when they said that the Richmond song wasn't played on the bus, because it wasn't. It was sung on the bus by one of the facilitators, apparently. So, and there's been a couple of occasions where the club has been very cute with its wording to answers to questions that I've put to them on behalf of the podcast and our listeners and all the rest of it. And I just think, Pete, following on from your earlier point about when the club chose to take control of their own media, you're spot on. If you're going to take hold of your own media, that's all well and good, and we all know the reasons why. I mean, we were getting spanked by idiot trolls like Michelangelo Rucci and Kane Corns and whatever, and there was a lot of false information being spun around the club. But if you're gonna take control of it, you're demanding a lot of trust from people, and as soon as you breach that trust through a lack of transparency or an unwillingness to be open with your stakeholders, who are by and large your members and supporters, then you just leave yourself open for what's occurred now. Because the media don't go away. They don't go, oh, well, Crows are going to do their own media, so we won't bother. No, exactly the opposite. The media, the blokes like McClure and that, they're just going to dig deeper. So I hope that the club has learnt from all this and understood that the best way to get in front of a story is just to be open and honest about it. Just be open about it. And I think that's what Don tried to do. I think he took exception to Brett's line of answering, that he didn't want to give details and it wasn't anyone else's business and blah, blah, blah. And I think Don recognised that, people deserved a little bit more than that. And it looked to me like he might have gone a little bit off script on a couple of occasions in delivering that. But more power to Don Pike in that regard. And I hope that Don, despite being employed by the club and being answerable to Brett Burton and by extension Mark Rashudo on the board, I hope that Don maintains his relationship with the players to the extent that they know that he's got their back. Because if they don't feel that from Don Pike, then he's going to lose them. And it sure as hell's looked over the last couple of weeks that there is, fractures everywhere. And if there's a fracture between player and the coach, that never ends well. That's a very hard relationship to get back. So let's hope that, the club, despite the train wreck that it was, let's hope that the players are happy. And I guess the last thing that I'll say is that I was disappointed that not more was made of the injury situation, because whilst the collective minds thing displays a lack of mature decision-making down at the club and perhaps some inexperience and lack of governance, the injury management thing is what's really derailed our season from a playing stock perspective. And I noticed that Brett was very quick to leave the presser once the questioning turned towards our injury management.
Yeah, he brushed that off very quickly with a comment.
Very much so.
Out of the room.
I've never seen the club called the presser, and then Burton decided just to leave, and Shuttleworth had to cover it quickly with "that's enough questions." But Burton had already turned to go. It's a height of arrogance.
He ran that fast. I was surprised he didn't do a hamstring.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I see a very, very apt comment on the chat from our great friend Vardy Magic, who says, "Winning makes this all go away." And I just, I think let's just maybe rule a line underneath it, and let's look ahead to Saturday night, because I have a really strong feeling that
we are on.
That we are on, and I've got a funny feeling that presser was what the players wanted, and those supporting those players wanted. And I think that they've got some acknowledgement, and I reckon they're going to go hell for leather on Saturday night. I reckon we probably should just have a quick chat about some other news that's come through, and that's the players that we should have available.
Just a quick interjection. We've just reset the mechanism.
Let's reset the mechanism, boys. Let's reset the mechanism.
That's right.
I reckon we've got, hopefully, that they're talking about Tom Lynch being available. They're talking about Rory Sloane being available. Talking about, who else was it?
Lynch.
I think
Lynch.
Yeah, Lynch, Laird, and Sloane. Brown are possible, although still got.
Brown.
I don't think we'll see Brown. Gibson's got a test.
And Knight's got a test.
And Knight is probably one more week, they were saying.
Did you see the fact that Gibson, he hadn't got a hammy, he's got a back-related hamstring?
Yeah, well, that's not unusual.
I know,
they've confirmed Josh Kennedy out and Jack Darling, so their two key forwards are still out. So
and
we're in with a red-hot chance.
Also, Mark Lacroix just announced this evening. Football manager Craig Vozzo told West Coast Lacroix 31 could miss after being hurt in the loss to the Bombers. Had some trouble over the years with his wrist. He injured it, I think it was the second quarter, because he's had previous problems with it. It may cause him to miss again.
I reckon the crowd on Saturday night is going to be absolutely ferocious. I reckon as supporters we've been beaten around the ears for 2 or 3 weeks, and we've had nothing to cheer about. And I reckon the crowd's going to be absolutely on like Donkey Kong on Saturday night.
Can I just set a marker here?
Yep.
So that just gives us a chapter on our podcast for people that are playing on demand or listening on demand.
Sorry,
no, you're right.
Yep.
Go right ahead. Just quickly, also, obviously, it looks like they'll continue to be without Eric McKenzie and also Tom Barrass. Barrass has cleaned us up in the past, so they're a bit light on at the moment, and they didn't look like it last week. That's for sure.
Someone said twilight game. What time's the game on Saturday night? Is it a normal Saturday night game?
4:50, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
So bad. I got a wedding.
Well, sorry, Donk. Do you want us to ring up the AFL and bloody reschedule for you, or
no? I want you to ring up my friends and cancel the wedding.
4:05.
4:05.
No, you just take the phone and the headphones in there, mate, and you won't miss anything.
Yeah, happy days.
Was it 4:05? So what time's the ceremony? At 2 or something like that? 1?
4:30. So I'll get the first half an hour in.
Come on. It's ridiculous.
We'll do things a bit late here, all right? Just relax.
Actually, I'm glad to hear that. It's an ideal time for me, as it turns out, but I won't go into why. But that's good. Happy to say that was a 4 o'clock game. That's very good. I reckon it'll be a huge crowd, and as I said, I reckon it'll be on. I think that those couple of players hopefully will, they will come up and pass their test and come into the side. I'll tell you what, if Rory Sloane plays and that game starts off with Sloaney kicking a goal for the first goal, I reckon it will lift the roof off the place.
We didn't build a roof because we didn't vote in the Libs.
You know what I mean?
It's an open stadium.
There's not going to be a roof.
It's not an Etihad. Look,
what do you
Pete,
think, guys?
I agree, Pete, to an extent. I think American Crow's been commenting on the chat, and g'day, AC, saying that maybe, or suggesting that maybe the players have got it off a little bit lightly in all this criticism of the club. I think the proof is going to be in how they do turn up this week, because particularly if they get a couple back, I mean, you'd expect Sloaney to be a little underdone, but by the same token, as we all know what a great leader of the club he is, and he puts his heart and soul into the place, and I reckon that if he is right and he does play, we'll see some sort of first quarter from Rory Sloane, because he'd be champing at the bit. So I think it'll be a very good indicator of how things have panned out at the club as to whether we see a united force really looking to take the game on and maybe turn the season around in the second half of the season.
The issue of the ground is interesting that Vardy makes a point that West Coast do have a good record at Adelaide Oval. That has been, I think, primarily as a result of the dimensions of Subiaco being very, very similar to Adelaide Oval. So they play a very... So it actually suits them. But of course, what's happened is that they have, quite sensibly, their new ground has been built to MCG dimensions, and so they have played all their football this year virtually on the MCG. So I think that advantage that they have had over the last couple of years probably won't be there.
Good point. Yep, good point.
Yeah,
I
think it's possible.
I'd be very disappointed if we didn't win the. I say that is that when you looked at the West Coast side last week, there was I just couldn't see how they were going to get their goals. In fact, I backtested it at $3.65 and had a nice little clean up on it.
Nice work.
Yep, and I was very confident that they would win. And for that reason, for the very same reason, if we can't beat them without their key forwards, we'll never beat them. And
well, we said that about Fremantle a couple of weeks ago, without Sandilands, Fife, and some other bloke.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you've got to have somebody who kicks the goals. I mean, you can get drive all around the ground, but if you've got nobody who kicks the goals, you can't win. And I just cannot see how West Coast can win. And I know we've been playing like dogs, but I think that Pete's right. There'll be a big lift in morale. There'll be a big lift, I think, coming out this week. And I genuinely expect us to win and win comfortably.
Donkey, what do you reckon, mate?
We're going to win, and I think I'm with Pete. I think this weekend has reset the mechanism. I actually think that we're a Monty to win 7 out of the next 9, and we are going to overrun everyone in the finals. That's my prediction.
Yeah, well, I was excited. For Saturday night, but what do you think? Feeling take 1 week at a time?
Yeah, you guys can. Someone's going to hold the torch.
Yeah. Look, I'm not as bullish as you guys. I can't forget the last couple of weeks or last couple of games, Fremantle and Hawthorn. I can't forget the Melbourne game. We were an absolute rabble against Hawthorn, an absolute rabble. It's the worst I've seen us play for probably 7 years, I reckon. And it's hard to turn that form around in 1 week. And yes, we've had a bye, but the players have been away and been refreshed. But the issues that arose, particularly in the Hawthorn game, were very much around team system and the ability to run both ways. Our defensive running was hopeless. Our drive off half back was terrible, and of course that's going to be assisted by the return of Lairdy if he gets up. But there was a complete breakdown of our normal game style. We looked hesitant. We looked lacking fitness. We looked disinterested. That's a lot to turn around. And whilst I think we may make a better showing of things and play with a bit more heart than we have over, say, the last 3 or 4 weeks, I don't think it's all about heart. I think we're struggling with our injury load. I think we've got players that are underdone. Matty Crouch doesn't want to kick more than 20 metres in case he pings another hamstring. We're missing Eddie Betts, which is going to be a big loss for the Crows. And I'm not as bullish as what you guys are. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do turn up and play well, but I'm not. That's not what I'm expecting.
Yeah, look, I think we're getting cattle back, which is a big in for us, getting some proper cattle back, where the mental side of what's going on I don't think can be understated either. And I think Pete's point is very salient on what that means. And I think it's going to come to a point where we know internally we're either going to give up and fade away, or we're not going to do it. And this is the game we have to. And so I think that we are going to power on through here. Like, we haven't forgotten how to play football. We just got out a bit of form.
Well, it certainly looked like we'd forgotten how to play football last week against Hawthorn, or the week before against Hawthorn, Donkey. I mean, we didn't know how to move the ball.
I agree with your point, Fian, that it's difficult to turn it around in a pure football context. It's difficult to turn it around, in a couple of games. I just think that over the years, I have seen games won that shouldn't have been won on real emotional energy. Just have a feeling there is going to be some significant emotional energy brought to the game on Saturday afternoon, and I think that will it will, as Don says, it'll reset the mechanism a little bit quicker than it would ordinarily take to reset that kind of poor performance. And I think that will be enough. I don't think we'll win by a lot. I'm not that bullish. I just think that we'll sneak past, and that will just push us into. I think the following week we've got Richmond at the MCG, haven't we? I mean,
no, Geelong then Tigers.
We've got 2 home games in a row.
Yeah, I think it's Geelong and Tigers, unless I'm wrong. Which is happening.
I think it's Richmond Geelong.
I think it's Richmond Geelong. So all you can hope for is that it pushes us to an improved performance against Richmond at the G, and then then another, and then it will need another huge performance to get over Geelong. So anyway, we've got a really really tough 3 weeks. So we'll just see if we can use Saturday night as a springboard. But I know exactly what you're saying, Fian, and I think, and I agree with you. You can't just reset all of those things in a matter of 2 weeks. I just have a feeling there is some underlying emotion.
Yeah, but there is one thing you can reset it straight away, and that's called intensity. We have absolutely. We have absolutely lacked intensity over the last 3 weeks. We've been a listless side getting our asses kicked all around the oval. And if you watch Port Adelaide play last week, they had probably about half the number of inside 50s compared to the opposition. But the one thing that particular side, and I think they're a relatively unskilled side for a team that's sitting up in the top 4. But one thing that they've got massive intensity. And you just keep scratching, clawing, and just pushing it forward. And if our players played with the same intensity as I watched Port Adelaide play last week, and I hate praising them because I hate the bastards, and I think there's no secret about that. But
first I've heard of it, mate.
Why do you love Port so much?
But if we played with the same intensity as they played last week, we would kill them, because that's the one thing that we are really, really lacking. Intensity.
Well, no, it's not the one thing, Macca. Go on, sorry, but
there are there's many others, but
skills and cattle, but yeah,
but it's an important component though.
But you can overcome a lot of shortcomings if you've got the intensity and the effort that you can put into the game.
Yeah. I put it to you, there's a couple of reasons why Essendon beat West Coast last week, and the main reason was pace.
That's true.
Essendon play that kamikaze game style that doesn't have a lot of defence about it, but they'll cut you in half with pace. And the Bombers don't have a huge amount up forward either, and yet they were able to kick a winning score away from home just on sheer weight of numbers at the ball and run. And it's the one thing that we lack. We are not going to be able to beat West Coast on the outside because we don't have the pace or the class, for that matter, on the outside of the contest. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not as confident about this week, irrespective of the fact that I probably expect a bit of a bounce just on putting things behind us and all the rest of it. But I don't think at the moment we've got the skill set, the pace to be able to beat them, and I don't think we're confident enough by foot at the moment to work through West Coast zone. I think it'll be played quite similarly to the Hawthorn game, where the West Coast will be looking very much to trap the ball in their forward half, and I can't see where we're going to be able to work our way through the press consistently. And, of course, having Nick Naitanui there to give him first use and a fairly handy midfield with Shuey, Gaff and Yeo, etc., and a couple of others, I don't know whether we're going to have the game plan or the cattle, let alone the mindset, to be able to beat West Coast at the moment.
Yeah, well, if we can't beat them, if we've got these players coming back and then they've got those players out and we can't beat them on our home ground, then there's only one direction we're heading for the rest of the year.
Oh, Macca, I think that's a bit... sorry, Donkey, to cut you off. I think that's a bit unrealistic. I mean, Sloan hasn't played for, 8 weeks?
So he's 10. Forever, it seems like.
Yeah. And not only has he not played, he hasn't been able to do any running whatsoever for, all bar maybe the last fortnight. So we might see a fantastic first quarter out of Rory Sloane, but to ask him to run out a game is highly unrealistic. Now, we saw last week, without Cam Ellis-Yeoman I keep saying last match, with Cam Ellis-Yeoman out, Hugh Greenwood really struggled, and we got absolutely slaughtered on the inside. Absolutely slaughtered. Now, if we don't get first use of the COD again this time around, then we're going to get slaughtered again because West Coast quality is all around the outside of the contest. Lewis Jetta, Andrew Gaff, those blokes will cut us up. And I'm trying to be objective here because I don't disagree with what people are saying about the emotional uplift. But I think we may be competitive for a while, but I just don't think we've got the cattle to be able to win this match.
Well, we're certainly physically capable of putting on more than about 37 bloody tackles for a game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you objectively, Fana, and I don't disagree with your analysis at all. I think that if you looked at it player for player on paper, if you looked at statistics, if you looked at all of the analysis, you'd come up probably with a West Coast win 9 times out of 10. I just have a funny feeling that this will be that one time that a bit of the kind of games that I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Games that are kind of one-offs that, and I don't think we'll have the cattle to carry it over against Richmond on the MCG the week after. But I think that we can just show the supporters something on Saturday night. I just think that they will, and I think that they'll respond after the only word I can describe the games against Hawthorn and Fremantle were just really, really putrid, lack of care, horrible performances. So I think that we'll see something a lot better, and I think it might just be enough for us to sneak over the line. But looking at analytically, you'd pick West Coast for sure.
Well, I don't know. The bookie boys have got us at $1.70. They don't want to give away money. So
I think they had Fremantle at $3.80 or something when we played them as well.
Yeah, but the F at that day was great.
I know, but the bookies couldn't have predicted that. They had us firm favourites against Fremantle, and they did their nuts.
Well,
this is going to be one of those instances where, like, if you, I think we're favourites against Melbourne just about too. I reckon if you took them, if you had a rolling bet on the odds, if you kept rolling it over the next week on the team that you would have got such good odds that someone probably could win like $10,000 or something.
Yeah, that's true. Look, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer.
No, not at all. I think you're spot on. I think the analysis is correct.
It's interesting that we were talking before the bye about turning over the list and all the rest of it, and here we are after the bye with the circuit breaker of the press conference, as dismal as it was, and we're all ramping up the stocks and ready to make a big run in the second half of the year. My opinion hasn't changed since before the bye. I'm really happy that Tom Lynch has re-signed, but my pragmatic side says, geez, he would have been nice on the trade table. I don't really see the point in us sneaking into the 8, and I don't like the fact that we're bringing players back that perhaps still might be underdone.
Mate, if we sneak into the 8 and Brodie Smith is back and McGovern is back and they've had a few weeks under the belt, we are on. Making the 8 is going to be difficult, but if we get there and we've got those cattle back, we are on.
On for what?
Winning the premiership.
Oh, give it up.
No, if we make the 8 and those guys are back and they've played a couple of weeks, we have a shot at the flag.
Fiend, you got to remember that Donkey's a drinker.
I thought you said dream. I think you say dream.
No. Like if we are in the 8 and we've got our full cattle there, that means that we've just won 7 out of the last 9 matches at least. Mm-hmm. We are going with a ton of momentum.
How'd that work for Sydney last year?
We have a ton of players back.
Oh, just disregard.
We're a lot younger side. Anyway, look, you guys can mock me all you want. But
I'm not mocking you, mate. No. I'm not mocking you. I honestly.
I'm saying making the 8 is going to be the hard part. Making the 8 will be the hard part. Mm. If we're there, absolutely. If we're there, with all our players back, with a few games under their belt, it's fucking on. That's all I'm saying. If we're not going to limp into the 8, we're gonna go there on a massive steamroll. And I'm like, as optimistic as I am, I think that is a 30-7 each shot against us. But if we get there, then everything's reset. We've got our full capital available to us, probably except for Brad Crouch, and we're on.
Look, I don't disagree with you, Magoo, in that sense, because if we get there, we will have beaten Eagles, Richmond, Geelong, Melbourne, Port, Giants, and North. Also, we got Lions at the Gabba and the easy one, Carlton, at the end. We would have beaten some good sides, and some of those sides we would have beaten away from home. Although we are fortunate that most of our games against good sides are actually at home. Only Giants in Canberra and Richmond at the G out of those last games. So you're right. It will be in fantastic form if we win 7 of 9 and get to 6th spot or whatever. I just don't see it happening.
No, and as I said, making it's going to be tough. But if we get there, we haven't leaped in, we're on fire.
But even then, as I mentioned, you got the example of Sydney last year, who went from cellar dwellers to bloody champions. But it's hard to keep that momentum going. Yeah. Well, what I don't want us to see is finish an honourable 8th. I really don't. No. I can't see the point.
I agree with that completely.
And Paul in the chat mentioned earlier, don't want to support tankers. I don't think it's about tanking. I think it's about making an honest and realistic assessment of where you're at and where your list is at. We've obviously got blokes carrying injuries. So we had a late start to 2018. So we should be taking the opportunity to have an early start to 2019, if that's the case. And we should be being aggressive with list management. But That's not the Crows' way. We know that it's commercially viable for us to remain competitive at all times. So, and again, I apologise for being cynical. I just remember the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, and I can't pump this side up yet. And I'll be going for West Coast 21-30 on Saturday night.
Oh,
Fair enough. I will be going.
very low scoring game.
I'll be going the Crows by 10 points, Macca.
No, I'm going the Crows by about 21.
Donk.
I'm going to go the Crows by 28 because I have to be the most optimistic.
That's it, mate. You got to double down. Speaking of doubling down, Donkey, why don't we have we all talked that out? I reckon we get into some competitions, eh?
Sounds good.
I always like it when we get to this bit because I can hear Donkey madly scrambling going, oh shit, where's that website? Where's that bloody thing? Way you go, mate.
And look, I think everyone really enjoyed the race call last time, so we're going to try to do that one again. So Donkey's, whoops, I've got the wrong round up. Let's get back together. Donkeys went down by 27 points to Mick Spuds, which is really unfortunate because I think that might have ended the donkey seasons, but still mathematically possible like the Crows.
Oh, yeah. You're going to keep fighting to the end.
The Winter March, or also known as Peanut on the real world, is up against Dillon FCC, lost to them. One Win Wonders, which is Corey Alt, went down to Wheat Peter, which is not the Peter on the chat. Dwayne DIY Brain Surgery. Nick Gummin, second to Habanero Hot Sauce.
It's not going well.
No, it's really bad. I'll just slow down a little bit. Just want to point out that so Monkey Slappers, Joel, got 1,523 points. And our glorious leader, Kim Jong Phoenix, got 575 points. So he was only off by about, just under 1,000 points there. Good work, the Big Crows Bangers.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on that team too.
Look, yeah. 500 struck me pink, as Matt would say. ASP Rockcliffe, which is Newbie Kimber, went down to Barakchos. We don't know who that is because they've never reported themselves in. So if you're listening now, please report yourself in. Shoe Stars 624 beat you, Fane, on 1,692.
Yeah.
Sanders is cruising on in sixth place, knocked off 6 Skid Kids, and Azza knocked off Pete's Pirates on 700. So there's clearly a few people that are putting in some mulligans.
I'm doing what I reckon the Crows should do. I'm setting myself up for next year's draft, mate.
Yeah, you get the same picks, dickhead. Look, we've got Dillon FCC on top. So Wheat in second. Peanut, the Winter March, comfortably in third. One Win Wonders in fourth, and nobody that is involved with the cast is doing any good at all. We come across to the tipping. My tips for the week were pretty horrible. I got 3 out of 6. I think that was 3 weeks in a row, so my season is done. We have a look at the ladder. Where if I can find it. Man, I hate this thing. Oh, here we go. I've got it in front of me. J-Mac leading the way, 83. What a year. 5 tips last round. 83 is where he goes. Dom is on 81. 5 tips last round. Cellar Dwellers, not near the cellar or the dwelling at all, at 81 as well. B Short Ben at 80. Moyley coming in a very honourable fifth, but equal fourth really on 80 as well. And then we skip down a little bit. The first of the Crows tipsters is Donkey to Water here on 71, and that means Peter J comes in just behind me on 70 and Phoenix on 66. I haven't put my tips in for 3 weeks, so the fact that those blokes are behind me is pretty abhorrent.
Yeah, because we haven't either.
And again, just to point out that Mac is not in this competition because he chose not to play with us.
He choked.
He choked at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Hasn't backed up.
That is not true.
Come on, mate.
Makes.
Thank you, Donkey. That was wonderful. And it's now over.
with it.
Game of Crows, no game last week, obviously, so we're back into it this week. We've still got the mystery ladder, so I'm not going to announce the leaderboard just yet, but rest assured I know what it is. This week we are going to have 1%ers, so a pretty weird stat. We may have done it before, but I don't care. We're doing it again. So 1%ers as recorded by AFL.com. Can throw out some weird numbers sometimes, so we'll get back into it with that. Macca, your turn.
Oh yes I am a grumpy old man, that's what I am, and I really don't care.
Go for it, mate. You still awake?
Well, yeah. Well, after Donkey...
Get on with it, Macca.
No, we like taking our time with this one, Donkey.
Oh, man, I just cough it. Because I give it to you, innit?
Yeah, a couple of sweets. And actually, Fiend, you've already had yours.
You could probably repeat it for the latecomers.
Yes, for the latecomers.
No, move on, mate. Move on.
Can we get on with this or what?
Just shut up there, Donkey.
People enjoy this one, Donkey.
And no, I've got to give a sweet to Fiend because he was up there talking about it well before the media got wind of that they were rubbish out there.
He's looking for promotion to general manager bloody podcast operations next season, I reckon.
We're going to talk about that sweet off air.
No, you've got to give a sweet to Pete as well because he initiated the whole thing with the information that he got on Gov. I just got on the back of it and did some web browsing. So let's share that one.
Definitely a sweet to Pete as well for the information that he passed on. And
aren't we pathetic?
And I may have stopped the lawsuits.
Bloody backslapping bunch of...
We're fighting over a Macca.
Well, let me finish.
It's starting to sound like bloody Sam McClure now, the bloody flog.
Well, Doggy's going to get a bloody sweet because he drinks more beer during the show than anybody else does.
And eats more chips.
Yeah, so well done, mate.
Yeah.
And as far as the slaps go, well, look, I could give 500 slaps, but they'd all be aimed at Brett Burton because, seriously, he embarrassed himself. He embarrassed poor old Don sitting next to him. He embarrassed the club. And in my opinion, he put on a performance that can only be resolved by his departure at the end of the season. And if the football club, I hope the football club hears this because... I got a phone call today from one of your fundraising girls, and I told her very clearly that as a founding member of the club, I've always given money to everything the club asked for. From now on, I won't be giving 1 cent while that idiot Brett Burton is still in the club. So for any of your fundraising things, give me nothing. Not while Brett Burton's there. Once Brett Burton goes, I'll double the contribution, but I'm not going to give a cent. So the great big slap, 500 of them around his bloody head, 500 kicks up the arse. I can't give him enough punishment. He is an absolute disgrace to the club, and he really did embarrass the club when he put on that pitiful performance at 3 p.m. on Friday.
Bang.
Saturday.
Yeah. Can I add a little sweet? And I don't like giving a sweet to this guy, but I thought he was on the money the other day. David Koch, when he was attacking the AFL/VFL for shutting out other teams with regards to this trialling of the bloody zones and all that other crap. I think he's spot on the money. I think that all clubs deserve to at least have some footage or some information about the proposed changes next year, and I think he was right in giving the AFL a bit of a nudge to remind them that there were some teams outside of Victoria that can have some input as well. A slap for me goes to, I'm just reading here, Mark Evans, who's suggesting that the Gold Coast Suns need a bit of help because they're suffering from the free agency system. Mark, you got so many bloody concessions at the beginning, not you personally, but the club got so many concessions at the start. Unfortunately, the competition can't continue to just disrupt the overall disbursement of talent anymore. We suffered enough through the Gold Coast and GWS birth. Not again. Come on, mate.
Hello?
Any more?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry. That was it. I thought
You guys always go quiet after I talk.
It's your segment, isn't it, Macca?
Well, I told you all my slaps are going to one guy, Bert.
See, this is why you're just special comments, Macca. You like too much dead air going on.
This is a Bert Ness train wreck.
Well,
the competition report was so much better.
I know you don't like going into details, Macca, because you don't think it's fair, and some of the comments that have been thrown your way has been laughable, and all the rest of it. But I think the supporters deserve a little bit more, don't you?
well, what do you want me to do? Belt some other bastard round the head.
Yeah, if you could, and get the video. Go down the club and belt Brett Burton around the kneecaps and get the video, and we'll post it on Facebook.
Yeah. Look, it's just also, we're only 60 comments away from hitting the 500 mark. I don't know if we've done that before, have we?
We've done it lots of times, Donkey, but thanks for paying attention.
No.
We have. We did last
week.
week.
A dog bloody recipe out there while I was bloody talking.
Yeah. Well, my wife is from Peru, and we've got the Socceroos playing the Blanca de Rojos tonight, which is the Whites and the Reds.
Yeah.
And the house is divided.
As it should be.
As it commonly is. The donkey and the old nag are going to go at it, and we're going to have a bit of lomo saltado. So you guys at home should try it. It's a very nice dish. It's got rice and chips and marinated beef. A lot of people don't know about Peruvian cuisine, as it was heavily influenced by the Japanese at the turn of the 19th century. So it's pretty lovely.
Yeah, I will say that for you.
Why isn't there silence after Donkey just trots that rubbish out? Like, why aren't we all just sit...
We're trying to cover up, make out he never spoke.
No, what? I tell a story, and people are engaged, Phoenix. Not like your drivel and dross that comes out repeatedly that nobody cares about.
No, Sam.
Peruvian cuisine. Can you Can you tweet out the bloody recipe, mate, please?
Well, I put it on the thing. I can do that. I can tweet it out.
Tweet it out. Yeah.
I tweet it out.
That'd be great.
The Peruvian cuisine is not too bad. They've got the lomo saltado, which is actually
no. That's enough. Anyway.
No. Well, they also do the guinea pig.
Yes.
The guinea pigs.
Jesus.
I've had the guinea pig. Have you not had guinea pig?
I'm feeling like one at the moment with this.
Anyway, anyone think the Socceroos can make the final 16 out of the four of us?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I reckon they might get up, but I don't reckon. I reckon the Frenchies won't do us any favours, and I reckon Denmark just might sneak past.
I was about to say that, Phoenix. I think the biggest problem is whether we win or lose is the fact that France don't have to win to go through. And,
they have to be careful though, because if Denmark pinch a goal, they can lose top spot, and then they've got to go and play the first ranked team.
I understand they'll play to keep top spot.
They will not want to lose. They will not want to lose top spot.
And I accept that, but they don't have the incentive to go absolutely flat out, do they? No,
I think they might score early and sit back, Macca, because they can afford a draw, France. So I reckon they might try and get in front early and then play about 10 across the back.
That's what I think will happen. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Fiend's wrong too. But I think when you rely on other people to get through, that's always the problem.
We've got the second coming of Kuehl, who only played about 20 minutes in the last game against Denmark, and I reckon he's going to start or play a lot earlier on tonight. No Vardy magic. I don't think we're going to win the World Cup yet, but if we make it through to the third round, who knows where we can go.
Yeah, that's right. Momentum.
Momentum. Oh, I didn't think we'd meet Italy in the fourth round a couple of years. Anyway.
Yeah.
I get mocked so much. This is why I come out punching.
Yeah.
Well, he punch out with bloody recipes.
Anyone think Timmy Carl's going to get a cameo as a bit of a send off?
He should.
Look, he really should. I hope he does.
Yeah, my heritage is Dutch, and I know for darn sure that the Dutch don't have one sentimental bone in their collective bodies. So the only reason that Bert would chuck Timmy on is if he thought we could get a late winner out of him, because he doesn't really fit the plan.
If he didn't give him a go in the 10 minutes against Denmark, when we had all of that play and we were crossing the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen a time that would be more suited than for Tim Powell to come on and get a goal, it was in that game. And if he didn't bring him on then, I just cannot say that he'd bring him on.
Yeah, wrong call. Super Timmy Cahill brings us home in games. Like, he's a magician.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. He should have given him the go. But a couple of things that Sam McClure. What is up with Sam McClure?
Oh, we're back here. We're back to bloody.
Hey, come on! Fiend's done really well to get this on the money. Macca, you want to start a podcast again?
Go on, Macca. Have you say really quick.
I was just going to say that it's about Sam McClure though. What is it with this guy that he it doesn't matter what happens and no matter how it's presented, Sam McClure always wants to try and make it very negative against Adelaide Football Club and to sensationalise it as well.
I think it's rock media in general, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, well,
we Sam McClure, I think.
Sam McClure is playing to an audience, which is the Victorian audience. He wants to make Victorians feel happy, and an easy way to do that is to slap interstate teams. And you know who's got their head up the highest at the moment? It's the Crows. And so they're going to slap us down. Like, it's pretty simple stuff. Like, he's the biggest prep school knob jockey that I've ever seen in the media. Sorry, Pete.
It's clearly a war that croc media are launching upon the Adelaide Crows. And it's got to do with the fact that we're running our own media.
Got the media, exactly.
We did talk about that earlier in the show.
Yeah. Pete says in quiet admonishment. Is that how you tell your kids off, Pete? I did mention that before dinner.
I did mention that before dinner.
Jesus, Pete. I'm glad I'm not one of your kids.
Now, listen, I've got one thing to say before we wrap up, right? The CrowCast, and I've got to thank everyone that's ever listened to us, not only the people in the chat, but the people. The CrowCast at the moment, since 2015 when we started, we're about 1,500 listens short of 100,000 listens since we started. And it'd be really great for all concerned if we could get to that 100,000 listens by the end of the season. So what I'm suggesting is that people that listen, either in chat or on demand, if you could just all share it once amongst your social media buddies, either on Twitter or Facebook, just click the share link and share it with your friends. We had an amazing listenership over the Collective Minds podcast a few weeks ago. We had over 1,000 listens. It was fantastic, and it'd be great if we could keep that momentum going, as Donkey loves the momentum and the continuity. But if we can get to 100,000 listens by the end of the season, that'd be a feather, not only in our caps, but in everyone's caps that listens and has supported us over the time. So give it a share on Facebook or give it a retweet on Twitter. Give us a review on iTunes and a star rating if that's how you listen to us. We'd be most appreciative, and I might actually look at doing something further down the track in terms of a little competition. But if we could ask our listeners to do that, that would be awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Macca,
mate.
Pete, Donkey. Been a good night.
Not all.
Thanks, everyone in the chat. Nice to see you, AC. And we'll see you again on Sunday for the Wrap Show, Macca.
Yep, see you then.
Night all.